Hello, welcome to In the Court of the Wenton King.
Peace, man.
Peace, man, yeah. Yeah, we're doing Bill Bruford. Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice. Yeah, so obviously, it's kind of obvious what album do you have to do with Bill Bruford. Most people would say One of a Kind, actually. It's not my favourite, actually. Interesting. That's interesting. But I think it's his one people talk about. I think it's the one he talks about as well. We've reviewed Close to the Edge. And we've reviewed Trigger the Tail as well, because of course when Bill Bruford was free, one of the things he did was actually tour with Genesis. We haven't done What's in Between yet, but we will. But his experience in Genesis, obviously the idea was that he was supposed to be a hired gun. Don't influence the music, just play. And he really, really hated it. And apparently he couldn't, and did actually say, that's wrong, don't do that, wrong. So with that in mind, obviously set about looking for something more in his area of taste, being jazz or jazz rock at the time, and something where he's got more control over, because he's that kind of person. Either you're someone who copies stuff very well, who can do a session musician who can play anything, or you're someone who's kind of more of a free spirit who wants to do what they want to do, and they kind of have to do what they want to do. And Bruford's that kind of person, So this sort of goes back to his meeting with Dave Stewart. Not that Dave Stewart. This is another Dave Stewart, and forming a band called National Health with him. Dave Stewart being from the Eurythmics, not really, but also Hatfield in the North and Egg, actually, as well. He was in both of those bands, so that's interesting. I don't know what happened with National Health, but it sort of dissipated or whatever. It was somewhere around that time, I think before Genesis as well. He was actually in Gong. He toured with Gong because their drummer wasn't allowed to cross borders because of drugs. Which was not fitting to Bill at all. I mean, sort of chaotic, hippie, do what the hell you want thing. I can't imagine how sarcastic towards them he must have been. So that didn't last long either. But I think the outcome of National Health was actually Bill Bruford deciding to form his own band. He wants his own band, and he knows Dave Stewart's up for it, and then decides, I need to get somebody from thousands of miles away for some reason, which is interesting because logistically it's kind of madness to want an American in your band. But it's really interesting what he says about this, that he thinks British musicians kind of do their thing. It's more about just doing it, whereas for Americans it's more about hard work. If you like, that they have to focus on what they're doing and practice for months and months and months so it's correct. So he sought out, on the recommendation of Dave Stewart, Jeff Berlin, the ninja bass player from New York, and went to see him in New York, and he's one hell of a bass player, it's got to be said. So he's really got a great rhythm section going there. I mean, you could argue Jeff Berlin is technically far and away ahead of Bruford in that sense. So obviously, just to balance that out, he decided to get Alan Holdsworth as well, the ninja modal monster that he is, the most technically able guitarist I've ever heard. Please don't reply to that with lists of guitarist names, not interesting. And they recorded an album with a vocalist. I'm not a big fan of the vocals, to be honest. But then after that album, UK was actually formed with John Wenton and Eddie Jobson, which was short-lived because obviously there's a bit of a thing there about where John Wenton was going and where these guys were going. For a brief moment it was fantastic, but there's some story about John Wenton asking Alan Holdsworth to play the solo from In the Dead of Night exactly the same as on the album, rather than just improvising. So that was kind of, no, not doing that. So basically they decided to leave UK. But their second album is this gem here, which is really rather good. Bill really rates this. He kind of says, the albums he's been involved with that really did stuff. He says Close to the Edge, Red, One of a Kind, Discipline, and that's it. Yeah, those are the ones he lists, which is interesting. So he does. I don't think I rate it quite as highly as that, but I do think it's a really great album. It's very much fusion, obviously. Some fantastic playing on there, some great melodies on there, some very, very 70s Moog kind of noises as well, which for some of the album affects the quality of the album. I think it ages it a lot. For some of the album it doesn't matter, in my opinion. Did you find that?
Yeah, I wasn't so offended by the synth sounds because I've kind of got used to it now. But it's obviously an album of some very capable musicians, led by a drummer. Now, that's quite unique for a band to be led by a drummer.
Yeah.
You could say Genesis, Phil Collins took over, but it didn't really. He more led it as a singer, rather than a drummer. So it does give it a fairly unique sound, which I think we're quite familiar with because
Yeah, because it's prog, isn't it?
Well, it's prog, and we sort of done a little bit of music with the drummer, and we sort of know that kind of sound, what kind of sound that produces. Very clear beats, emphasised snare drum, which would normally be sort of buried in the mix somewhere.
He has these snares up like this, so he can go and get that fantastic sound.
Yeah. Bruford is rightly considered one of the best drummers, if not the best drummer.
Fantastic sound, it's all about the sound. I think this period probably is in terms of his sound, this is the best.
Yeah, I mean, he played with some big bands, you know. I mean, he played King Crimson, that early sort of Lark's Tongue in Aspic era King Crimson, which really was trend-setting and really unique. And obviously, yes, and obviously went with all these other bands. So there is something very individualistic about this in terms of the sound and in terms of what it is. If you don't like jazz, well, you're going to struggle a bit because
it's jazz.
It is essentially jazz with rockness. Some great guitar work on it, and I really like the synths as well. It's experiment. Well, it's not experimental, but it's progressive in the music, in the construction of the music, I suppose. More than, I think there's some crazy time signatures on there, 1519 or something like that.
Yeah, there is a couple of those.
Yeah, rather than in any overriding concept or anything like that. But I think that's Bruford's thing. He likes jazz.
Yeah, I mean, in so many ways he's a jazz drummer, and obviously there's a problem with the word and the definition, and well, no one is a jazz drummer really, except for one drummer from the 50s or something, but yeah, he's a jazz drummer, isn't he? Let's be serious about this. He's not John Bonham, is he? He's nothing like that at all, he doesn't do that.
What I would say this album's good for, I mean, if you are a bit of a prog fan who struggles a little bit with jazz, doesn't know really where to start with jazz, this is a good album, because you will enjoy it.
Yes.
On that level.
Yeah, I think that's true to say about UK as well, probably UK more so, because it's actually got rock songs on it as well. So that's very rock and a bit of jazz, whereas this is leaning more toward jazz, but still recognisably proggy.
Yeah.
In a way, maybe Witch's Brew and all that stuff, isn't it? I mean, if you compare it to like Majeure Orchestra, much more structured. There's a European sensibility to it more so than the, if you like, sickliness of Majeure Orchestra. We might do Majeure Orchestra one day. Maybe we should.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you would expect from a drummer is structure.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about, basically.
First song?
Hell's Bells.
Hell's Bells.
Hell's Bells.
I suppose this is the one that's aged the most, but it's just a good melody, and it's got like an effect of yeah. But it's just a good melody, so I don't mind. But I certainly think that's one of the moments on the album where this sounds like it's from the 70s.
Track 2?
One of a kind. I think this is one of the best things on the album. Just a great melody. Yeah. What we're going to talk about as we go, we're going to do 3 albums, and we're going to go basically do albums dotted through his career, is that in the end this stuff sounds better with an acoustic jazz quartet, and One of a Kind with the acoustic jazz quartet is fantastic. Yeah. Or at least One of a Kind part 1.
What I've noticed, a lot of the comments about this album is it seems to be a lot of musos trying to figure out how the music's constructed. I'm kind of interested in that.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you listen to it with that ear, it's quite sort of impressive just on that front. You think, well, how would I go about recreating this?
Yeah, and I think that obviously some people will be critical of that in their ignorance, but I suppose the emotion is a rock emotion in that sense, in that you bang your head because it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's annoying. That's what it's about, really. Well, it's more than that. Yeah. Track 3.
One of a Kind, part DOS.
This is, I like the way they've separated this out. I don't know. I hope they weren't told to make the songs shorter by the record company or anything like that, or maybe they're paid by the track. But this is the sort of improv section at the end of One of a Kind, if you like, and it's brilliant.
Really good. So you really tell they got some good. Track 4.
Travel with Myself and Someone Else. It's interesting. If I did that, I know this album really well, right? But if I did that, I could not tell you what that song's called, because the names of the songs are
meaningless.
Yeah, they're completely meaningless, aren't they? It's something Bruford's always done, is ballads, and this is an interesting one because it starts off very much like a ballad, but in the middle it gets going and we get some funky bass, so that's really cool.
Track 5?
5. This is the one that leaps out instantly, I think, when you first listen to the album. It was for me, and you've got a little clip of some Alice in Wonderland stuff, and Fainting in Coils is actually a line from something the Caterpillar said, maybe, and that's very much prog. It's a heavy, crazy prog riff and all that stuff, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, on the first listen, this is the one that makes you turn the album over and go, what's this called? Very good.
Track 6, 5G.
5G.
I suppose, I mean, there's a lot of guitar playing on Fainting in Coils. I'll talk about the guitar playing a bit later, I think, but 5G, it's about the bass playing. We got some funky bass playing. It's one of those things that live, it's better. It's always going to be better live, something like that. And actually, to see a video of it being done as well, he's just you know, it was amazing. It's interesting. The first time I heard Jeff Berlin was actually on the Yes ABWH thing where Tony Levin was ill and they had to get Jeff Lynne in. No, they had to get Jeff Berlin in at the last minute, and it was all very subdued and obviously playing it safe. But he had to learn the whole set probably in a day or something. It was not representative at all about this amazing bass player. Yeah, and Bill Bruford's choice of bass player is always either Tony Levin or Jeff Berlin, not Chris Squire, because he's noisy and messy and bow. Track 7.
The Abingdon Chasp.
This is the one that fades into the album a bit, and it's a generic Bruford melody, so a really good tune, but it's not one that's very memorable. It's alright.
Yeah. Is this sort of like one of the tracks that pull it down from being...
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Maybe they didn't need that on the album when you got 10 tracks.
8?
Forever Until Sunday. So we had kind of a full start of a ballad before, but I think this one is mostly the traditional Bruford ballad, kind of normal jazz ballad thing. There is a bit of funky bass in the middle again, actually, but mostly it's a ballad. So that's good to have at that point in the album.
Yeah, definitely. Track 9, The Sahara of Snow.
This is a really cool track, this is. Not just a great melody, but the keyboards, I think, work here better than anywhere else. And obviously the title gives the game away. And I think it kind of echoes what UK were doing on that first album, with the sort of snow and ice and that sparse kind of sound, and you know, really like that.
Yeah.
Very good. But track 10, Sahara of Snow Part 2, is like kind of like a breakdown, if you like, but it's a slow ending riff thing for solos to go over. But doesn't go on for ages and ages and ages. I think it's only about 2.5 minutes. And maybe echoes... I think he's thinking of Starship Trooper, the end of Starship Trooper. That's what he's thinking, that kind of thing. It's a groove, a repeating groove. And I have to say, like Songs in Ashby Part 3, the end of that has to be influenced by that. It must have been Bill's idea, because there's a lot of similarities there. But of course, it is a guitar solo, and it's a fantastic guitar solo. It's there's not actually a lot of notes by Alan Holdsworth standards. It's more about bends and about sustain and things like that, which is really interesting. But there you go. The thing I wanted to say about the guitar is I mean, Holdsworth is one of my favourite guitarists. You know, I grew up listening to your classic rock and all that stuff, and then discovering prog, and I suppose I'd moved towards the point where, you know, Malmsteen is the way to go. And about age 18 or 19, you start to sound like that. You know, and you think, well, that's what you do. It's picking every note, and you obviously using classical modes. But what Alan Holdsworth does, you know, I bought the first Holdsworth I ever heard was actually the album Hard Hat Area from 1993, and it's one of those things where I had no concept of what he was doing. It was just amazing, and as it turns out, he's not picking every note. It's actually it's hammer-ons and pull-offs, and that's how he gets that incredible smooth legato, which is so wonderful. Nobody can actually do it as well as he does it. I mean, here he was still developing. It certainly didn't come out of, you know, he wasn't happy that he could do that ridiculously. It comes out of the pain and torture of not being successful because he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and still not happy with his performance and all that. And he got better after this, but incredible player. And it's always one of the people who gets the old chestnut. He doesn't play with feeling. So I thought this was a great time to address that. That, you know, you only have to think about that for a minute. It's just nonsense. What does that mean? What does it mean? Doesn't play with feeling? How do you know? It only means I don't like it. That's all it means. And every person repeating that is repeating something they've been told to say by NME, Majeure.
I think generally what it means is it's a highly technical performance.
Yeah. So does that mean we're not allowed to think about what we're doing? Playing with feeling means you've got to whack the guitar like the Edge. Just do that. Bah, bah, and
You're saying about the Edge, man.
I know, I've dissed the Edge. What are we going to do?
The best guitarist in the world ever.
I saw mid-90s. I saw a U2 concert. I did actually go and see them later on. I saw them at Sandcastle, and it was kind of a big show. But I actually saw a video of a concert in mid-90s. Maybe I think it was not Zoo TV, the one after Zoo TV, the crap album, really crappy album. And the guitar solo was. That was the guitar solo.
Sounds great to me.
That's playing with feeling. Whereas, you know, trying to express yourself, that's not feeling. Who knows? Anyway, yes, great album. I don't think the seminal moment that Bruford considers it, but I think it's a great album, a really good album, really good bit of fusion. If you want some kind of heavier fusion and less sickly, if you like, a bit less American and this is perfect for that.
Yeah. Eggs.
Everything gets 4 or 5 eggs, doesn't it? So is it 4 eggs or is it 5 eggs? I'm going to go 5 eggs.
4 eggs.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Right, we will see you next time.
Bye bye. That's not a picture, is it?